My mom wants me to swap my fiancé with my sister's at my own engagement party because hers is taking forever to actually get married, and now they're both crying. Yesterday was my engagement party, and what I'm about to tell you is what my ridiculous mom and my equally ridiculous sister pulled. For some context, I am engaged to my fiancé John. He proposed recently during our trip to Greece, which I absolutely loved because I've always been obsessed with that place. After we got back home, we decided to host a small, intimate gathering at our place to celebrate the engagement. Nothing over the top, just close family and a few friends. Of course, my mom and my older sister Courtney were there. Courtney's fiancé, Daniel, was invited too. Now, their relationship is a whole story on its own. Courtney and Daniel have been engaged for the past 3 years, and still, no wedding. They are the definition of an on-again, off-again couple. I've honestly lost count of how many times they've broken up, only to get back together days or weeks later. It's an endless cycle that no one can keep up with. Their issues are pretty serious. Courtney struggles with alcohol, and Daniel has a bad habit of cheating. It's a toxic mix, and every time they try to make things work, it all falls apart again. Despite all that, they've somehow stayed engaged, constantly trying to fix things, and for some reason they always find their way back to each other. Both of them actually dropped out of college because they had this big idea of traveling the world together. They talked about living this adventurous life, hopping from country to country, experiencing new cultures, and not being tied down to boring 9-to-5 jobs. It sounded exciting in theory, but reality hit them hard. Neither of them had any real savings to fund this lifestyle. At first, my parents reluctantly helped them out. They weren't thrilled about it, but Courtney has always been the golden child. They gave them some money, hoping it would at least help them get started. So they left, full of excitement and big dreams. But not even 3 months later, they were back home, completely broke, and asking for more money. And my parents, being who they are, helped them again. At least this time, my dad made it clear that if they wanted to keep traveling, they needed to figure out how to support themselves. He told them straight up that they needed to get jobs. That's what responsible adults do. Obviously, that advice went in one ear and right out the other without any resistance, because just a few months later, they showed up again, still broke and still looking for help. But this time, my dad had had enough. He put his foot down and refused to give them any more money. That led to a huge argument. Courtney was furious, and Daniel wasn't happy either. But my dad said that was it. He told them if they wanted to live a nomadic lifestyle, they had to learn how to take care of themselves. And if they weren't going to get jobs, then at least learn how to hunt or fish, because real nomads didn't have a grocery store nearby or a parent's wallet to rely on. Courtney was livid because she hated that comparison. But in the end, she reluctantly gave in, because my dad wouldn't budge, and she got a job at a local restaurant, at least for the time being. It wasn't what she wanted, but she didn't have many options. My mom, always the peacemaker, tried to convince my dad to at least help them pay rent while they got back on their feet. But he told her that if she wanted to do that, she could take the money out of her own pocket every month. So now they have a roof over their heads thanks to her, even though it's not exactly something she enjoys. As for Daniel, he's been working as a mechanic, which is probably the most stable thing he's done in years. But knowing them, it's only a matter of time before they get bored again and try chasing another unrealistic dream. As for us, we're not close sisters. The truth is, she's always been my mom's favorite, which is exactly why my mom always bails her out no matter what. You've already heard about one of those times. I swear, if it weren't for my dad stepping in and setting boundaries, my mom would have drained all our savings just to keep Courtney happy. It wasn't any different when Courtney and Daniel got engaged. My mom was beyond excited, ready to plan their dream wedding, fully paid for, of course. But that never happened because Daniel kept putting it off. Every time the topic of setting a date came up, he had an excuse. He wasn't ready. He needed more time. He wasn't sure he was fully ready to commit yet. It was ironic, honestly. They had been together for years, were already engaged, and he still couldn't take that final step. Meanwhile, my mom kept holding on to hope because her golden child was going to get married. So when John and I got engaged, my sister wasn't exactly thrilled. When she heard the news, I didn't even get a single congratulations. She could have at least tried. Instead, she told my mom she wasn't unhappy about my engagement, claiming that I was trying to compete with her. Compete with her over what? A wedding that isn't even happening because her fiancé keeps dragging his feet? Knowing how my sister is, I tried not to interact with her too much during my engagement party because I didn't want her ruining my mood. Still, she managed to corner me and made it very clear she didn't like my engagement. Unlike her situation, we actually had a wedding date set, so that was her main issue with my engagement. She claimed I had pressured my fiancé just to make her look bad. It's not my fault Daniel has been coming up with excuse after excuse to avoid committing. John and I love each other, and the date was his idea, so there was zero pressure involved. It's all made up in her head. There's probably extra space in there anyway, since she wasn't exactly born with much going on. But of course, Courtney didn't see it that way. Everything always has to be about her. To this woman I call my sister, something about all of this just didn't add up. because a guy like John couldn't possibly be with me while she ended up with someone like Daniel. She even accused me of trapping him with a baby, touching my stomach and staring at me to see if I was showing. The problem is, I've always felt like my sister has had some kind of weird crush on my fiancé for years. With me, she's cold, dismissive, sometimes even rude. But the second my fiancé walks into the room, she completely changes. All of a sudden, she's sweet, smiling, acting charming. It's weird. Take my engagement announcement, for example. She refused to congratulate me, but had no problem giving John a long hug. This behavior isn't new either. Courtney has always been strangely flirty with John whenever she gets the chance. Sometimes it's subtle, but other times it's so obvious it's embarrassing. And when alcohol is involved, it gets even worse. She tries to stand way too close to him, finds excuses to touch him, his arm, his shoulder, even his chest. There have been times when John has literally had to tell her to back off. When that happens, she plays innocent. She acts all embarrassed and blames it on being too drunk. But we both know that's not true. And if that wasn't enough, my sister even stalks him on social media. John blocked her a while ago, but somehow she still finds ways to keep tabs on him. That's exactly why John avoids her whenever he can. He wants nothing to do with whatever game she's playing. So I told my sister to back off and reminded her that, unlike her fiancé, my partner actually loves me and wants to settle down with me. I made it clear that if she couldn't be happy for me, that was fine, but she didn't need to go around insulting me just because I had finally found happiness and she hadn't. Her face turned red with embarrassment, and I just left her there. As the night went on, I made sure to keep my distance from her. John could tell I was tense and tried to check in with me, but I didn't tell him about what my sister had said. I didn't want to ruin the night by bringing up Courtney, so for the moment, I kept it to myself. Eventually, I started relaxing and enjoying conversations with the guests when suddenly, I heard the clink of a glass. John stood up to speak and announced that he had a pre-wedding surprise for me. He had booked my dream wedding venue. For days, I had been obsessing over one particular place, going on about how perfect it would be for us. But it was way too expensive and completely out of our budget, so I had let it go and started looking at other options. I never imagined John had been paying that much attention, let alone that he would actually go and book it for us, as a surprise. I didn't care that people were watching. I went straight to kiss my fiancé. That's exactly why I love him. He's so thoughtful, always finding ways to make me feel special. I told John he didn't have to go through all that trouble, that marrying him anywhere would make me happy. But he just smiled and said this was going to be the best day of our lives and he wanted to see me happy. As if the night wasn't already full of surprises, John's parents stood up shortly after his announcement and made one of their own. They shared that they had always hoped I would one day become their daughter-in-law, and now that it was happening, they wanted to do something special for us. My future father-in-law told us he would be more than happy to cover our honeymoon. It honestly felt like the perfect night, except for that one small issue involving my sister. She clearly wasn't happy after our earlier conversation, but at that point, I didn't care. Not long after, my mom suddenly pulled me aside and asked me to come upstairs. I asked what was going on, and she insisted she had something important to tell me. The moment I walked into my room, I saw Courtney already there, sitting on the edge of the bed with her arms crossed. My mom started saying that she and Courtney had something they needed to tell me, but before continuing, she insisted I keep an open mind and really listen to them. Then Courtney spoke. I think I should be with John instead of Daniel. She said that since she was in love with him and he was a good guy unlike Daniel, it would be better for her. She claimed John only avoided her out of respect for me, but if he were single, he'd see her differently. She was sure it wouldn't take long for him to fall for her, because she could be just as good of a girlfriend as anyone else. She just needed a chance, and that chance was me giving up my fiancé. I looked at my mom, trying to figure out if this was some kind of joke, but she was staring at me dead serious, like she was actually expecting an answer. So I said, "Leave my fiancé? What are you even talking about, Courtney?" I knew exactly what she meant, but I wanted to give her the chance to explain herself in case I had somehow misunderstood. She said I wasn't good enough for John, that I didn't treat the family well, especially her. Meanwhile, she claimed she could do better, even be a better fit for his parents. I could feel my blood pressure rising, but before I could even respond, she kept going, insisting she had always felt like I wasn't as serious about John as he was about me, that I was young and immature. While she was ready to be a wife and have kids, she said she had been ready for 3 years, while I had only recently decided I wanted to get married. Her argument was that all I had to do was break up with my fiancé, that he'd be devastated, and then she would step in to comfort him and they'd end up together. She even told me I could have Daniel, that she wouldn't be jealous of me being with her ex. I knew Courtney had always been self-centered, but this was a whole new level of entitlement and delusion. And when people say 2 heads are better than 1, they clearly weren't talking about my sister and my mom, because both of them were fully on board with this nonsense. I won't lie, everyone has a dumb idea sometimes, but most of those ideas don't survive being said out loud. If you say something out loud and it sounds ridiculous, you drop it. But neither my sister nor my mom seemed capable of passing that test. They were stuck on it, and honestly, it was sad to watch. At that point, our voices were loud enough that people at the party could probably hear us because we were arguing. Or rather, I was telling them they were being completely ridiculous, saying things so stupid they couldn't even recognize how stupid they sounded. And that's when the door opened. John had noticed I was gone and came to check on me. He took one look at my face and knew something was wrong, so he asked, Behind him, Daniel was standing there. I turned to look at Courtney and my mom because I realized there was a good chance Daniel had heard everything. Judging by the look on his face, he probably had. I told my mom and my sister to go downstairs, and when they reached the door, to leave. For the rest of the night, I stayed close to John, and he didn't leave my side either. When it was finally time for everyone to go home, I told John everything that had happened, and he said my sister wasn't just crazy. She was the kind of crazy that would try to dry her hair in a microwave. He told me that before he'd ever marry her, he'd rather marry my mom, which says a lot, because before marrying my mom, he'd probably book a one-way ticket straight into the sun. It's honestly hard not to love him, and everything he did and said that night was perfect. At least my sister and my mom didn't completely ruin the night, but I needed to share just how unhinged they really are. Update 1. A lot of you are absolutely right. Courtney's behavior is the kind of crazy that belongs in a padded room, locked up, with the key thrown into a black hole and the map burned just to be safe. There's really no way to sugarcoat it. Thankfully, I trust John, and I trust that no man I'd want to marry would ever choose someone like her. I even told John that if he's ever going to cheat, at least do it with someone who has a functioning brain, because whatever my sister has going on up there is questionable at best. I'd still divorce him, of course, but at least it would hurt less knowing he left me for someone who isn't competing to be the least intelligent person alive. But that's just how my sister is. She has no problem flirting with him right in front of me and making him uncomfortable. To be clear, I've always stood up for John. I've confronted Courtney multiple times about her behavior, telling her to stop and that what she's doing isn't okay. I even slapped her once, because while I was telling her to knock it off, she straight up said she didn't care. Luckily for her, and unfortunately for my hand, I barely even made contact. But no matter how many times I've called her out, or how many family gatherings at my dad's place we've skipped, she keeps pushing it. And what happened the night of my engagement? That was on a whole different level. It's like someone asked her how crazy she wanted to be, and she just said, yes. The only upside is that now we know exactly who won't be invited to the wedding, which saves us a few seats. For starters, my mom and my sister. And Daniel won't be there either, because I'm not inviting him if she's not coming. Update 2, a lot of you keep asking why I haven't exposed my sister and my mom to the rest of the family. The truth is, my fiance and I just aren't those kinds of people. Yeah, we could easily call them out and get some kind of revenge, but honestly, we don't want to waste any more energy on people that toxic. Right now, I'm in one of the happiest chapters of my life. I'm excited about getting married, and I refuse to let family drama take that away from me. I don't want to create tension or force anyone to pick sides. Instead, I've decided to simply cut off contact with my mom and Courtney. That said, I did talk to my dad, because he deserved to know the full story behind why I'm cutting them off. Needless to say, he was furious. He gave my mom a serious lecture about how ridiculous it was for her to support something like that, and he reassured me that I'm making the right decision. No matter what happens, I'm still going to have a relationship with my dad. At the end of the day, none of this is about him, and I am not going to let my mom and Courtney's actions take that away from me. He's still invited to my wedding, and if my mom has a problem with it, he said he doesn't care. He's not missing his daughter's wedding. He's already waited 3 years for the other one. Update 3. Well, something interesting happened. Apparently, Courtney's fiancé, Daniel, overheard everything that was said that night. I don't know exactly when he started listening, but at some point, while I was upstairs arguing with Courtney and my mom, he must have been nearby and heard every disgusting word that came out of their mouths. I just found out that he has completely canceled any wedding plans and ended his engagement with my sister, which honestly makes me laugh because it was already the longest wedding planning process in history. Canceling it almost feels redundant, but at least now it's official. From what I've heard, they had a massive fight. I can only imagine how that conversation went, Daniel finding out that his own fiancé basically admitted she wanted another man and not just any man, but my fiancé. Then he went and made a post about it on social media, basically exposing Courtney and my mom for what they were trying to push me to do. Honestly, that saved me the time and stress of having to deal with it myself. At this point, I see that post as the invitation to my sister's non-wedding, the only invite that couple was ever going to send out, since there was never going to be a real one. Ever since the breakup, Courtney has been absolutely furious with me. She said he was her backup plan and she didn't want to lose him. She wanted me to talk to him and somehow convince him it was all my fault, that I had pushed her into saying those things and that she didn't really mean it. Yeah, because I'm totally capable of twisting something like that into a believable excuse. I might look smart standing next to my sister, but I'm not that good. And that's assuming I'd even want to fix things for her, which I absolutely don't. I have zero interest in doing her any favors, and honestly, the petty side of me is enjoying this a little. If anyone's to blame for Daniel hearing all of that, it's them. And today, my sister actually had the nerve to call me from a coworker's phone, since she's blocked and can't reach me any other way. She was yelling, going off about how she's gonna get revenge for what I've done, and warning me not to think this is some kind of win. I couldn't help but laugh, because with her level of intelligence, any revenge she tries to pull will probably just backfire on her. She said that sooner or later, John would see this side of me and leave me, and that she would be waiting for him. him, but she didn't put it that politely. She actually went into explicit detail about her private parts and John's, as if John doesn't already know everything about me. I even told John exactly what my sister said, and he warned me not to repeat it again unless I wanted to mess with his friend. I told her she should be grateful. If anything, he just made things easier for her. Now she can continue happily playing the homewrecker role she seems to enjoy so much. If anything, she should be thanking me for clearing the path so she can keep doing what she does best, being a reckless idiot who acts without thinking. I told her she should find a comfortable chair if she plans on waiting for my future husband, and I hung up while she was still screaming. I don't know if I'd call it karma, but everything happening to her is clearly the result of her own actions. The only surprising thing is that her stupidity didn't catch up with her sooner. Update 4. Before I get into my post-wedding update, there are a few things I need to mention. Some people weren't happy that I kept calling my sister stupid so many times, but I really don't see the problem. I'm not going to call a penguin an elephant, although there are people who literally identify as a dog and buy costumes to live like one, so I guess that's the kind of audience I'm dealing with in some of these comments. If that's the case, I apologize. You already have enough problems in your life without being insulted in a Reddit post. As I've said before, my wedding is now in the past, so John is no longer my fiancé. He's my husband. Not only did we celebrate our marriage, but also my parents' divorce. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because first, the wedding. The wedding was amazing, and I also prepared special gifts for John. Not anything inappropriate, like you might think, just gifts to make up for him securing the venue. Although I avoided mentioning what my sister would do with her parts and John, I didn't want to ruin the wedding night. It was a wedding where everyone we wanted was there, and everyone we didn't want wasn't. But let's talk about the divorce, because I mentioned it like it was nothing, but it definitely wasn't. No, I wasn't directly involved in the divorce, but my dad divorced my mom. I'd say faster than my sister's wedding, but that wouldn't be accurate since hers dragged on forever and never actually happened. Here are the reasons for the divorce. My mom wanted my dad to cover the portion Daniel used to contribute to their relationship so my sister wouldn't have to move out. She told him to do it because her favorite daughter had ruined things for her other daughter and that he shouldn't forget he has 2 daughters. My dad basically told her no. There were arguments and all that kind of stuff. But eventually my dad got fed up and told her that if she didn't want her favorite daughter to lose her home, she could go live with her instead, because he was giving her a divorce. He also reminded her that she has 2 daughters, not just one. I haven't received a single gift from either of them, but honestly, I can't ask for anything more than this. Imagine my wedding gift being my parents' divorce. For other daughters, that would be the worst thing in the world. For me, the worst thing in the world would have been my dad staying married to that narcissist of a wife.